Now you may be thinking, the game that changed my brain forever? What the hell did this guy play? Hentai f***ing Souls of Duty 5? And you might be right, maybe I did play that, but that's a story for a different day. This vid's about a game I recently played at the tail end of 2024 that felt like doing every single illicit substance known to man at the same time. A game that completely rewired the way my brain works from the ground up. A game that gave me new perspective on how to live my life. That game is one you probably haven't heard of nor played, and today I want to introduce you to it so that you too may join me on this bizarre journey of adventure, friendships, tragedy, and, well, whatever the hell this is.
Pork evil facts. 5 miles tall. 5 miles wide.
That game is Disillusion. Picture this. You waken in a distorted town. Happy music blares and you hear a strange noise coming from a nearby house. A multicolored tower looms in the distance. You knock on the door of the house and are greeted by a strange green entity. Nothing, just looking. The conversation continues until it quickly concludes with the strange entity gifting you a butter knife as a weapon. Yes, a butter knife, and tells you to get out. Your vision blurs to black and you are warped right back to the center of the distorted town. The tower beckons to you in the distance. You make your way up the path towards it and enter, only to see that that peculiar little town you were spawned in was the most normal thing this wacky world has to offer. Now, what exactly is it that this game does that makes it so life-changing, you might ask? It's clearly not the graphics. I mean, hell, cavemen were probably playing games with better graphics on their stone tablets in 10,000 BC. So why, Mr. Yellow YouTube Man, are you even talking about it? Well, little Timmy, you're about to find out. Disillusion, as the name implies, delves deep into the schizo dream world of a golem, all with an air of subtle mystery and, you know, what the f*** is even going on? And let me tell you, this world is even more batshit insane than whatever shit-bat insanity you can think of. Think of the literal weirdest thing you've ever encountered in your life and magnify that by 9 bazillion. That is the core beauty of the world of Disillusion. As a self-described oniric dreamland, the game obviously takes place in some realm beyond mere human comprehension, or as Pyrocynical would say, all in the head. But it goes one step deeper than just dreams and fantasy, as this entire game takes place within what Buddhists would refer to as the Eightfold Path. Ooh, fancy. You ascend a tower of increasingly challenging odds to escape never-ending reincarnation and achieve nirvana, or for the uninitiated, a place of perfect peace and happiness, just as Buddhism foretold. Also, if you like what you see, you better comply with this cat's demands and subscribe. Right at the beginning, you're also introduced to a fan favorite character, Melpomene, or Mel for short, and goddamn, can I see why she's a fan favorite. But in all seriousness, she's a muse, one of 9 to be exact, and here to lead you through the tower in your quest for nirvana. More on her later. And now you might be starting to piece together why I would refer to this game as a brain-altering experience, as it imbues its players with various real-life concepts from all sorts of different religions, mythos, and points in history to widen their perspective on the world at large. Much like that one friend you may have had who did shrooms once and now can't stop talking about how the machine elves showed him the meaning of life and the men in black are coming to get him. Disillusion has some of the most intoxicating atmosphere and lore despite its low graphical fidelity in any game, scratch that, any piece of media I've ever consumed in my entire life. And I've probably consumed more media than the average American consumes food in a day. The music enraptures the mind with soft soothing elements in some areas and repetitive trippy beats in others, perhaps mostly reminiscent of Akira Yamaoka's work in the Silent Hill franchise. We all know how damn well the music in those games ramps up the atmosphere. Whenever I play Disillusion, I feel like I'm in a dream, lost and wandering around the liminal space between reality and fiction, looking to see what crazy creature or thing I bump into next. Except my eyes never open and slumber never ceases. I'm stuck in this dream. And the only way out is to keep plodding forward into insanity. When you combine all this insanely intriguing lore and atmosphere with a surprisingly engaging gameplay loop akin to Earthbound, albeit very simplified, as well as, like I mentioned before, a really interesting world to dungeon crawl through, and all for the low price of $2 on Steam, I think you might get why I've been howling from the rooftops like a smegma mill for the past couple of months to all my friends that this game is the single most underrated and genius piece of media I have personally had the pleasure of going through in 2024. A piece of media that changed my brain forever. Let's talk about the gameplay for a second. Discounting the town section at the start of the game that you will be revisiting throughout, although only for brief moments, the core gameplay of Disillusion consists of exploring the tower and its 50 plus floors, coming across all kinds of strange creatures ranging from charred pieces of broccoli to disembodied screaming heads floating in the air ready to drain your life force. There are also portals scattered throughout the different areas that take you to various zones across the tower, some of which are about as normal as Disillusion can get. So not very normal at all, and some of which are just an empty floating platform in space with a gigantic galaxy gas whale in the sky. You never know what you're gonna get with this game, and that's why I love it so much. In some of these floors, Mel will also appear, sometimes giving you words of wisdom that bring you closer to the truth, and sometimes just straight up memeing on you. Before some of the game's boss fights, for example, she will offer to heal you, even though she's not supposed to mess with the threads of fate, showing just how much she cares about Golem. Don't get any ideas, you dirty little pervert. And as their bond strengthens from floor to floor, a dark presence watches over them in envy. The most powerful presence this tower has to offer. While not a horror game per se, there are a select few levels in the tower that have huge horror vibes to them. And let me tell you, I'm a huge horror fan. For example, there's a floor where you're introduced to a dark, gloomy house in the distance and are filled with a sense of overwhelming dread. You knock on the door only to see two mysterious creatures leer at you through the window, their bodies covered in convulsing eyeballs. They speak gibberish, and suddenly you are transported to a room where the walls, floor and ceiling are made up from nothing but eyes. Horrific music pierces your ears and you're forced to fight your way out of this dreadful place. There are so many little examples of stuff like this throughout the game, where the creator subverts expectations. They quickly became one of my favorite things about the game. And it all makes sense too, with the main theme of the game being dreaming, because with pleasant or zany dreams will always come two nightmares. Much like some of its predecessors that you may or may not already know about, like LSD Dream Emulator. There is some real nightmare fuel in this game that is sure to keep you up at night, sometimes intentionally and sometimes not. As you progress further and further into the game, you also start learning about different beings that may have shaped this world and even yourself. Devas and demons far beyond mortal comprehension. Many characters throughout the journey tell you vague pieces of advice, like not to accept the deal and stay away from the Devas. Advice that at the time makes no sense to you, much like a lot of this game, but is soon to make a whole heck of a lot of sense as you venture further and further. And trust me, if a lot of this stuff sounds confusing to you, you're not alone. When I first played this game, I didn't have a single clue what was going on. Heck, even my second or third playthrough, I was pretty lost. But once again, that's kind of the beauty of this kind of game. Much like games like Silent Hill 2, Signalis, or Fear and Hunger with deep, expansive lores and a lot of confusing ideas at play, Disillusion asks quite a lot from its players. To read between the lines, research about different foreign concepts, and ultimately form their own opinions about what is taking place on the screen. I mean, hell, this game was about to make me a Buddhist monk, for crying out loud, with how awesome and interesting that religion is. If not for all the life lessons, at least for Mel. Unfortunately, it also becomes clear as you approach the top of the tower that Mel from earlier, who has been with you all throughout the game, is nearing her end as her power fades and she collapses on the ground outside the final floor. While the game never outright tells you this, she turns out to be the muse of tragedy and chorus from Greek mythology and daughter of Zeus. And so as this play is nearing its end, the curtains must close for her, for a new act must begin. Mara, the final entity of the game, and an angelic but actually rather demonic being whom you might meet on the final floor, presents herself as the one who can end all your suffering and bestow you with everlasting bliss, much like the snake from Adam and Eve. Now, in the context of real-life Buddhism, Mara is a temptress of sorts, A demon who tries to lure Buddha away from enlightenment and into its trap. Obviously Buddha ain't having none of that, and he ends up reaching enlightenment regardless. But this just puts this part of the game into perspective, as Mara isn't really the benevolent being that she makes herself out to be to the player. Another good life lesson to not take everything you're told at face value. She presents you with a deal that you can either accept or decline to be cured from your role outside the karmic cycle, or not to be cured. That is the question. Should you decline this offer, as you probably should, Mara gets big mad and the final boss fight ensues. Just you and her, fighting in the void for your last chance at enlightenment. Well, I tried to make it sound all fancy like, but really it's just you spamming attack and potions until she fades into the abyss. And as the credits roll, after you slice her into ribbons with your butter knife and moldy socks from the start, you sit there in awe. Your brain changed forever from this experience. Go play the game.